Hi, everybody. This is Darren Dunlop from the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber. I am very, very excited today to have Anna Hansen, who is the sales director for ByteSpeed, joining us today. Anna, it's so nice to see you.
Always good to see you, Darren. Thank you for having me on today.
Great. Well, it's an interesting story, this ByteSpeed company that we've got over in Moorhead, Minnesota. Now, I know a little bit about them. I know that they've been in business for over 20 years, but it's almost like you guys almost go out of your way to be a secret in this community. And what we're here to do is we want to really give our listeners and viewers an opportunity to find out more about ByteSpeed. So I tell you what, why don't you tell me a little bit about ByteSpeed, where the main source of your business comes from, and what it is that you guys do?
Absolutely. I promise the secret thing is not strategic. We're actually working really hard to get out there in the community and do a better job of that. And I feel like over the last few years, we've done a lot better job of that. Actually, ironic. So we're a national company. Like Darren, you said, we've been around for 20 years. And we started out primarily just building our own big, ugly, beige computers. So we were building those computers, shipping them all over the country, primarily to schools. So a huge focus in schools, especially back then. So I would say probably 98% of everything that we did in the beginning was really education focused. I've been here for about 15 years, and when I started, it was still probably 95%, very heavy education focus. We were just starting to look at laptops at the time. You probably remember them. They weighed about 100 pounds and were very expensive. So things have changed so drastically in technology over the last 10 to 15 years. It's been crazy. We've had a ton of advances, and our company's changed along with it. Our laptops have gotten slimmer and more mobile and more compact and more affordable. And the performance obviously has gone gangbusters. We no longer have big, huge, ugly beige towers. We now have small, compact, black computers that we're shipping out to everyone. And then we've really diversified our portfolio of what we carry. So now we're doing networking, wireless, and switches, virtual reality, esports. It's just grown such a tremendous amount. Pretty much anything that you plug into your network, we have a solution for. And then a lot of services that are real custom to the verticals that we support. We've really grown too on the vertical side. So you'll have healthcare, finance, higher education, those city and county local government now make up 32% of our business roughly. And the rest is still a very big footprint in K-12. Our biggest state, ironically, is Georgia, which is pretty funny. And it's been our biggest state for quite a while. This past year in 2019 is the first time that another state has come really, really close to winning the prize, and I'm proud to say that it was North Dakota. So we've made a lot of strides here in our backyard of just getting out there and knocking on doors and letting people know that we are here. I think sometimes it's hard to be a hero in your own backyard. So I think we're working on that real hard. And then Minnesota has actually grown to our top 5 in states. So it's been a lot of fun. We've seen a lot of changes, and if you would have asked me 15 years ago, would I be talking about virtual reality solutions or esports or any of that, I would have thought you were crazy.
Anna, you had talked about, with my mediocre math skills, I'm going to say ballpark. So like around 68% of your business is still education based. And with the at-home learning that was instituted. So, are you hearing from your education partners as to what contingency plans that they might be making for the future if stay-at-home learning is still going to be on the table?
I think everywhere across the country knows that they have to plan for that contingency, and it's funny because some of my local schools and some of my schools in different states will be going, is everybody else doing this? And yeah, they all are. You've got issues any way you look at it. If we're still looking at social distancing, which unfortunately it looks like that's still going to be the case, you've got lunchtime, recess, pickup, and drop off. And how do you social distance during those events and keep people safe and do the right thing? And I have a couple of little ones at home. I would love for them to be in school because I think I told you one of the other times we talked with that my son gave School of Moms 0 stars. was trying hard, but he's not impressed with School of Mom. I have a whole new, I feel like I've always appreciated education and the teachers out there, but I have a brand new appreciation for how valuable that is now that I've tried to do that job and realized what a poor fit I am as a substitute. But I think everybody's working on contingency plans and trying to figure out whether they'll be doing part-time schedules, and even if they do get to start out full-time, there's a lot of fear around flu season and how we're going to manage through flu season. I wish that I was saying something else because I am devastated. My kids miss their friends and they miss school. I would not have thought that my two little ones would be telling me, please, please, please let me go to school, but they are. So but yeah, it seems pretty across the board. It doesn't matter whether we're talking to school districts in Illinois, Iowa, Montana, California, or New York. Everyone is figuring out what their contingency plans are and how they're going to deliver education remotely if they have to. So it'll be nice because this time we actually at least have time to prepare and think about what we're going to do instead of just all of a sudden you're teaching one day like normal and you have to figure out how to deliver an education to people. So we're doing our best to support that. It's been crazy.
Yeah, I can only imagine what kind of challenges that a company like yours has. Because I'm assuming that a lot of your components maybe have to come from overseas, and you build and manufacture your own things, but still those components are coming. And with the challenges of the supply chains and stuff, I was hoping that maybe you could speak to that a little bit, Anna.
We had just a tiny benefit, and I don't know if it was a benefit or maybe a scare, but we started seeing issues. So much technology is manufactured in China. So much of what we get comes from across seas. So we started seeing issues last fall. And so because we knew that there was trouble coming, we were able to kind of go through our slow season by way overbuying what we thought would get us through our busy season. I don't think that anyone, my purchasing team has been so wonderful through this whole thing. They have carried our organization, and I'm beyond grateful for how well we're sitting because of their foresight and ability to get creative when they're trying to find components for us to build the systems and stuff that we need to. But even as we were preparing to have component shortages out of China, we had no idea that the pandemic would come here and that we would have issues with freight and delivery, and it just has not been what we thought it would be. And solutions that we had intended to be just game-changing giant implementations. So our virtual reality solution, for example, has been growing every single year. And this year it kind of is just at a little plateau, maybe even a little bit down, where people are trying to reassess what are my priorities in education. So 68% of our market is trying to get devices for students so that they can teach at home. And so we onboarded 2 new solutions that I feel really, really good about. We're working on an application deployment solution called AppStream with Amazon Web Services, where you can actually deliver content, any content. So say you've got somebody in a classroom that's taking Adobe Creative Suite or AutoCAD classes where they need that content to actually complete the class. Well, you can't do that on a Chromebook or an iPad. And so this solution, AppStream from Amazon Web Services, it'll allow you to actually deliver that content direct to the devices. And I'm really excited because the solution's been around a long time, but we're actually designing some pieces that'll be key to education. Like the way that you purchase it right now is really poor for schools. So we're going to solve some of that problem and give them a little bit of insight into how the usage is and how to figure out what their usage will be for the year. And then at-home wireless. We are so blessed in this area. So many kids have access to wireless or wireless at home, and that is not the case in so many places. I was talking to a school from Illinois the other day, and he was telling me that 40% of his students do not have access. So what do you do in that environment? And so we're working with another company that has traditionally done, their name is Cradlepoint. So they do like wireless for police cars and school buses. And they have an at-home router that you can put at home and a bunch of kids can all jump on, and it runs off a Verizon SIM card. So the school could still manage it and filter it. And when you're in emergency response and you're still having to consider how you not only provide the education and the content, but do it in a safe and responsible way. It is not an easy time to be a technology director, probably in any field, education or city or county or healthcare. It's been really tough, but we had purchased a ton of components, and we have sold through a lot. Um, we actually sold through all the laptop inventory that we had that we thought would last us through the end of the summer. It was gone in May, and so now we're doing everything we can. We could see the writing on the wall there, and we're buying up everything we can. But it has been it's been crazy, and people are telling us you can order this product, but hopefully it'll be there in August. I never thought in a million years I'd have to tell people that. It's crazy.
Wow. Hey, when you touched on virtual reality a little bit, and that's something I'd like to visit on next. I know that, well, you and I have talked before about how virtual reality can be utilized for workforce development, because of course that's the, as far as recruitment, retention, all of those things, workforce. Every year we hear that at our events. It's the number one concern of the employers in this region and all over the country. So I was really hoping that maybe you could elaborate a little bit on the applications that you guys are working on with virtual reality for career focus, workforce development, medical solutions, things along those lines.
Absolutely. Honestly, that's the progress that was made this year that I was the most excited about in virtual reality, and I still am. We had a webinar in April about the solution, and it had 140 people registered for it. So I feel like there's still a lot of interest and momentum there, but we're also still trying to figure out what we're going to do for the year. And the solution I'm talking about, it's a career training solution. My heart goes out to the employers in this area because I know what it's like. We're trying to find employees and go through some of the challenges same challenges as anyone else. But I also understand, probably from a very different perspective, what it's like to be on the education side, just because of the sheer volume of schools that we work with. And a lot of parents and the public think, well, just pack these kids down to the hospital and let them walk around and see what these jobs are like, and take them to the work site, let them see what it's like to be on an excavator, and let them see what it would take to be an electrician. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could do all those things? But it's not that easy. You've got HIPAA compliance regulations at the healthcare facilities. You have safety concerns. You can't take a kid under 18 onto a work site, a construction site. So there's all these amazing career opportunities, all these good paying trades careers that kids could be exposed to and really interested in. And it's really hard to get them that experience and show them what the jobs would be like. And so virtual reality is so amazing because you can do things that you can't do in reality. I can take a kid and have them sit in a crane and see what they like and learn how to weld or learn how to become a plumber and actually see what the job is like, spend time in running the position, put on your protective gear and see what is going to happen there. The healthcare thing I think is really fascinating. I grew up watching, I'm probably dating myself here, but I grew up watching the Magic School Bus, and you had to scratch on your knee and the school bus went in, and that's what I saw in a very 2D way. Well, there in virtual reality, you can actually go through the bloodstream and you can look around and you can see all the organs and you can take the body apart, and in a very, very realistic way. It's actually amazing. So I like virtual reality so much for what it can provide. That reality, you can go to space or back in time. You can visit the Capitol, so kids that would never potentially leave the Fargo-Moorhead area can go to Washington, D.C. They can go to the Louvre. It is unbelievable, the opportunity that exists. I'm super excited. Some of our local districts are doing some really neat things. West Fargo, they have 2 esports/VR labs going in at each of their high schools. So their kids are going to have some really awesome opportunities. Fargo just put an esports lab in at South. So they've got that. Holly has a VR lab that they've had for a couple of years now, and it is really, really nice. And they're outfitting it for esports as well. Obviously, there's a lot of tie between esports and VR because they both use the same high-end technology to run the headsets. So there, it's an easy fit through. And then right in my backyard, it's going to be really exciting to see what Moorhead and DGF pull off with the Old Sam's Club here. So, and even just proximity wise, I'm excited to see that develop into a really good resource for our students here.
I would assume that we are probably just, as with all the advancements that we've had with VR, we're probably only scratching the surface of what the possibilities can become.
Oh yeah, and the content is the key. So trying to find the content. So I'm really happy to see focus going into career development, and maybe that's a personal struggle because of the community that we live in. But I can tell you that it's not unusual for workforce to be an issue in a community. I think that personally, I labored a little bit under the impression that we were the only ones, and that's just not the case. And it's not the case that we're the only ones that can't bust kids to job sites and give them the exposure to these different careers that we'd like to. And all the schools want to do these wonderful things, but it's expensive and difficult to meet the restrictions and guidelines that are set on all the schools in every state, not just ours. It's tough.
Yeah. Anna, I think we'll wrap up on this. And once again, you touched on this again. But one of the things that you had mentioned, which is one of the fastest growing sectors that ByteSpeed has, is your gravity gaming or your esports thing. So, it's not just the nerdy kid that's living in their mother's basement playing games anymore. This has become like a phenomenon. And it's only growing faster and faster and faster. So I'd really like you to speak about gravity gaming and esports.
You know what, it was a tough sell for me. We started esports a couple of years ago, and the president of our company said, we really need to do this. And I was like, I'm not really sure that I see a good fit. And I wasn't super excited, and I got drugged kind of reluctantly to a big conference, and there was all these colleges there talking about the programs that they were starting. And I started to fall in love there because of the passion and commitment, and these coaches, it wasn't about gaming, it was about things that I do care about, like retention and recruitment and inclusion and giving kids opportunities to learn social skills and maybe that's the thing that clicked the most for me is we employ a ton of really intelligent technical people, and not all of them rise to the top based on their intelligence. And I'm thinking, these guys are so smart, but they don't know how to plan a team, and they can't articulate what they're thinking, and they're just missing some of those things that, it's a traditional sport. If you have the ability to play a traditional sport, you learn so much from that experience. Sports are not just about the athletic piece, it's about the camaraderie and learning to listen to other people, and there's just so many things that go into being on a team and being in a sport. And unfortunately, some kids just don't have the ability or athletic aptitude to do those things. And I think it's really neat that you get access to those kids. But the thing that I didn't really wrap my brain around is, at the beginning of this, my son is now 13, he was 10, and I had a 10-year-old gamer, and I am probably a pretty typical mother in that I would go home and say, Logan, go outside and play and get off that computer. You don't need to be on that iPad. And I just spend a lot of time telling him to go outside. And after I came back from that conference, I started really paying attention to it and looking at it differently. And I'm really excited about the local opportunities for esports because I want my son to be able to play. And he plays basketball, and he's good at basketball. What I'm learning as I watch him and pay attention to what's happening around the games he's playing from an esports, he's good at basketball. He is amazing at these games, and I didn't really understand what an opportunity that would be. And when you start talking about college scholarships, that's hugely impactful. So you've got kids that are going back to college that had no interest. Lots of kids start college and they don't feel like they belong, and they drop out. Maybe not college isn't for me. Well, the experience wasn't for them. And quite honestly, you've got the same thing happening, unfortunately, in high schools where kids are falling back. I'll just get my GED. There's reasons that I don't feel good or they're unhappy. And so we did a esports scholarship this summer. We submitted that we would give away 6 high-end gaming laptops Um, Colleges and high schools could apply. They had to write an essay about how esports has positively impacted their lives. I cried reading some of them. It was unbelievable. And just what these kids got. I'm going to go to college and I wasn't going to go to college. I hated my school and now I have good grades and I'm doing so well. And oh my gosh, we planned to give away 6. We got down to the final 15 and we were just kind of dumbfounded. We ended up giving prizes to the runner-ups too because they were so good. The crazy thing is you would think that it would be all these college kids that wrote these articulate, amazing essays. It was not just the college kids. The college kids, they got half of the prizes, but the high school kids earned half of the prizes. The essays that we got from these high schoolers were unbelievable. I wanted to like send job offers to every single one of them that were writing these essays because they were articulate and well-rounded and they showed dedication and they listened and they studied. My son is playing a game right now called Overwatch and he's so excited about this game, and I was asking him, well, why do you think you're good and what are you doing? He's like, well, I practice and I really study. I spend a lot of time studying the layout of the maps and trying to understand what I need to do in my strategy. And I'm thinking, well, if you just apply that to all the other things in your life, you're going to be great. But because it's the same skill set that don't complain to me ever again about school because it's the exact same thing. All of the skills that you're building right now that are helping you be successful playing these games are the exact same skills that you'll use to pass tough classes and to get a good job and to be successful in your job. So you couldn't have told me a few years ago that I would be just this passionate advocate for esports from a company perspective and a parent perspective. But I totally am. The more he wants to play, I let him. And the funny thing is that before I would be like, you need to get off that computer. You spend too much time on it. And so it was like almost like this battle. And now I don't really do that. And he is outside on his bike with this neighborhood sandlot, plowing up and down the streets and doing it's just not even an issue. So it's been really interesting, and it is still in the middle of this crazy pandemic, going crazy. So states are still coming on board, sanctioning esports formally, and schools are still updating equipment. Colleges have been hit very, very hard, obviously, with the situation, but a lot of them are still saying that, hey, I might be able to get a hold of some students that I wouldn't have if I can get this program up and running. And so I think the colleges are looking at it right, and I think the high schools are too. The purpose is to provide a good education on either side, but having engaged and well-rounded students is a tremendous way. A couple of the essays that I read talked about their coach. My coach saved my life. My coach is always there for me. And I mean, that same story could be so true about so many sports, where you might connect with your basketball coach. But these particular kids, there was going to be no coach. They aren't playing traditional sports necessarily. But the other neat thing is you've got, like my son plays basketball, you've got kids playing other sports sitting down next to kids that they would never even talk to normally. And so you get this really cool blending of all of these different kids. It's just amazing. You can tell I'm a bit of a fanatic.
Well, it sounds to me like esports and parenting are kind of going hand in hand, as opposed to butting heads. They're now starting to work together hand in hand on that. And I do want to thank you so much for taking the time, and it's so interesting visiting with you because of the passion and the enthusiasm that you have. It's very contagious, and I've been looking forward to visiting with you for a long time on one of these video member spotlights, because I know a little bit about ByteSpeed. I know more now, but hopefully all of our viewers are going to know a lot more. And if they have any questions and probably need some expert esports advice, I bet I know where they could come to get some of that. So on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce of Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo, and especially Moorhead today, we want to thank you for keeping your business in our market, for the important role you play, not only in educators, with educators, but with the healthcare industry and all of the things, and especially your work with VR and the workforce retention and workforce development on career-oriented things that are going to be done with VR. We want to thank you very much, and ByteSpeed, and we're so much looking forward to seeing what the next 20 years look like for ByteSpeed.
Thank you, Darren. This is such a good community. We are so blessed, and I appreciate all the opportunities that being here has given us. And the workforce is definitely a challenge, but we've found some amazing people, and it's been really, really good to us. So we're lucky. We're very, very lucky, and very much appreciate you. And I think you promised me a glass of wine sometime, so we're gonna have to get that on the calendar sometime soon.
Well, I would hate for anybody to think that I would actually drink during one of these. So we'll do a wrap-up session, Anna, for here very soon. How about that?
Deal.
All right,
Deal.
sounds good. Anna, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.